Hello and welcome to this episode of the Business Spotlight. Today we are joined by Adam Chappell from Beagle Media. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. So, if you're watching this for the first time or listening to this for the first time, what is the Business Spotlight? So, the Business Spotlight is a place for you to come along to find out a bit more about business. And definitely, if you're thinking of getting into business or if you're already on that entrepreneurship journey, then you're in the right place. So, Adam, if you can just kick things off for us by
Cool.
letting the audience know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for.
Well, Mark, I'm Adam Chappell. I'm the chief executive of Beagle Media. We were founded in 2011, 2012, so around the end of 2011, as a content agency. So by that I mean filmmakers primarily, so creators of video and animation content for marketing and communications for businesses, all kinds of businesses, from small charities through to big multinational corporations. We have clients in America, we have clients in Europe, we have clients in the UK, obviously, clients in Asia. So we have an international network of filmmakers and content creators and producers here in the UK who deliver a range of different types, genres of content for businesses. We're also a TV production company, making shows, access-driven documentary series for British broadcasters primarily, but also for sale to international broadcasters. So the BBC, Discovery, Channel 4, UK TV, that sort of thing. And for us, content is content. We don't really make a differentiation between TV and a sort of engagement series for KPMG. They're 500,000 employees. To us, it's all about powerful, emotional storytelling. Content that actually leads to some sort of behavioral change or action, whether that's just to inform, to inspire, to get people to do something, or to feel valued. We have the same approach in storytelling when we're making a series for the BBC with Simon Reeve, for example. So our shows have been with Simon for BBC Two, the presenter Simon Reeve, sort of fairly big name here in the UK. In Cornwall, where we have an office. We have an office in Nansledden, which is the King's Duchy of Cornwall development, which Prince William is now taking on. That's where we're based in Cornwall. And we have an office here in London in Shepherd's Bush, which is sort of TV land in West London. So yeah, we have that same approach, whether it's a series with Simon Reeve or the helicopter show we make for Discovery, Cornwall Air 999, which is what we call a blue light series, anything to do with the blue light spinning. Again, access-driven television is our thing, whether that's access to talent like Simon Reeve or to an institution like the Air Ambulance in Newquay, or a specific location or culture or community that where the story can be told. And we use those same principles if we're doing a story for a bank or for a law firm, global law firm. It's about dealing with people and access and getting to the bottom of the story in a sort of slight investigative way. And that the flavor of talent at Beagle is a sort of mixture of filmmakers and creatives and great animators and editors through to really good copywriters and designers, visual design, for visual identities for events and things, through to journalists, and some of our people have got really good agency skills, and by that I mean communications and branding skills. So we have that kind of USP where we're not all just one type of creative. We're not all just simply producers or directors. There's a sort of quite a good mix of talent, both in-house and across our freelance network, which is quite substantial. So yeah, and we've been going sort of coming up to 15 years, sort of 10 to 12 years. TV has been our thing for probably the last 5 to 6 years. So just as COVID was kicking off, we started to work with Simon Reeve in Cornwall and did our helicopter series. And our most recent series was The Body Detectives for Channel 4, which was on over the summer, which is one other forensics, true crime, quite gritty, really sort of interesting project with a company called Locate International, which is a charity that helps identify missing persons and identify unidentified bodies. And there's about 1,000 bodies in morgues across the UK at any one time that are unidentified. And until now, there hasn't been a national database to make a record of those that can be cross-matched by police forces across the country. So it's a sort of strange anomaly when you think everything else has been, there's data on everything now, DNA through to, criminal records and things, but there's nothing for missing bodies, like unidentified bodies. So this chap, Dave Grimstead, who is a former police officer in the Met, is running that out of his charity called Locate, based down in Exeter. So we did a series with him and his colleagues for Channel 4, a 3-part series, and it was on over the summer in August, just around the time of the Olympics on Channel 4. So we're hoping to do another series with him. And again, it's just really exciting that our people, both in-house and our freelance teams at Beagle, get to work on both sides of the business, because ultimately we see it, agnostically. It's just content, and hopefully very good, engaging content that draws on the same creative spark on both sides. So yeah, that in a nutshell is what we do.
Wow, that was an amazing depth and breadth.
Once I start, I just
No, that's fantastic. And I mean, it's such an eclectic sort of mix of clients and work that you're doing there. It's fantastic. I mean, I'm going to dig a bit deeper into some of the things that you was just mentioning there, Adam. But I mean, I usually would sort of ask, there's obviously other companies out there doing something not too dissimilar to what you do. But what would you say would be the top sort of things that would make you stand out from anyone else doing something similar to what you do, Adam?
I guess it would be that eclectic mix of talent. So I don't think a lot of our competitors have that mix of agency people. So one of our people used to run Saatchi's in New York, for example. I was at ITN, so I was a broadcast journalist, but I was also a TV producer at indies like Darlow Smithson and Tiger Aspect, Endemol, Shine, and then I used to work on MasterChef back in the day. So there's that mix of talent. Then our international reach. So quite often our clients are based in the US, sort of big investment companies and law firms and things based in Washington and New York. One new client we have is based in LA, and you'd think they wouldn't work with a UK supplier because of the time difference, and they're not we're not in the same territory. We've got British accents, all that sort of thing. But once you get past that, they love it because we have international reach in terms of film crews. So they might have a local supplier in like Denver, but those guys are very unlikely to have camera crews in Shanghai, right? Where they probably have an office and they need to do some filming next week. So that is a huge USP, is the fact that we've grown over 12, 14 years now, an international network of film crews and producers who are available within days to film something at a really competitive rate. So it's cost effective. The reach is global, even though we're a little indie based in Cornwall and London. That quickly kind of wakes them up and they think, great, this could work. But it obviously business is always people doing business with people. It doesn't really matter what you do. You've got to face up to that as a business owner, that you need to be open and listen, but also sell yourself in a way that's appealing rather than just showboating all the time, and that's where things like LinkedIn, I think, can be a pitfall for businesses. If you're just constantly showboating, that can be a turn off. But if you're talking about something that's maybe one step removed from what you do, but meets your values and your ethical approach to business, that can be more appealing to someone who goes, oh, actually, I'd like to work with those guys. So we take that approach in the way we sell. We don't have a sales team. We work hard on the relationships that we have to sort of grow them. So we work by referrals rather than chasing down cold calling leads of cold emails, or you don't use any kind of data companies. So the growth is kind of slow but steady and has been over the last 10 years. And we value those sort of long-term partnerships. So maybe unlike some of our competitors, we aim to grow that relationship. We don't come in, do a film, and then leave. You know, that it's very much a, can we deliver a suite of content, not just one film, much like you guys do. You have different versions of the podcast, different cut down thing. So that's a fairly obvious thing that most people would do. But we take great stock in developing relationships and not letting them go. So, and we don't have a salesperson that does that. The producers are almost like account managers in a PR firm. They work the relationship and learn about the business as much as possible, because being content creators, we're not going to know about high finance or, you know, how a hedge fund operates, but the top level of messaging is fairly it sort of hits all sectors. You know, be amazed how many different sectors ask us for similar things. So the content tends to flow in sort of zeitgeist. So one year it was all about mental health around the time of COVID. It was all about hybrid working. What does this mean for everybody? Huge amounts of content were made, not just by us, but by our sector for everybody. So how are we going to deal with this? And then AI comes along, and that generates a huge tranche of content, not just for companies, like how is it going to impact the legal sector, but equally Panorama, you know, are running shows about deep fakes and AI and the impact of that on society and defense and all the rest of it. So in that sense, we are different to some in that we take a huge interest in the businesses that we work for. So almost in a consulting strategic comms approach, we work a great deal with strategic comms agencies, which is no surprise given, you know, the majority of what we make is internal comms, but a little bit of external marketing, but a lot of it is that engagement, emotional, sort of value-based content that all kinds of organizations like, whether it's an SME or a KPMG, for example. So yeah, and yes, we like to feel that we're different in that we can do both. So we do TV and corporate comms. And some of our competitors do that, but many don't. Many are just all about television and film. But I think the lines are blurring. 20, 30 years ago when I started out in television, you had cinema, you had TV, and then you had corporate TV, and they were siloed, completely siloed. Like if you worked in corporate TV, it's highly unlikely that you worked on shows for the BBC, for example. They're very different worlds. And I would argue corporate TV was very AV led. You know, guys with vans with camera kit who would rock up to an office and do a couple of interviews, then leave. That has changed. You still have those AV teams that film in conferences and things, but that's not what Beagle does. We can do it. You know, we'll grab interviews at conferences because everyone's in the same place. But we're more like short form documentary filmmakers.
Yeah.
Who are working around the edges, almost getting under the skin of an organization, finding out what makes it tick. You know, if we're filming with a CEO, it's all about learning about their passions outside of business, what drives them, to help them connect with their people.
Yeah.
So we've kind of got that investigative angle to what we do, which is carried across to television as well. So yeah, emotional storytelling is our sort of key USP. We get called up if people want tears and emotion. We do a lot of work with the Prince's Trust, which is rebranded a couple of months ago as the King's Trust, for obvious reasons. And we've worked with them for nearly 10 years now on very powerful sort of emotional stories, as you can imagine, working with lots of young people. And that's an example of where there really is a crossover between, you know, marketing and comms work for a highly regarded, long-running charity with a great purpose. That sort of almost crosses over to a TV series about young people overcoming awful sort of beginnings to potentially form successful businesses for the UK. You know, it's a great story, great drama. And where possible, if we have a client, we do look for those angles. Like maybe there's an idea for a TV series here. So in that sense, the two things become one in terms of those relationships. You know, you can sort of branch out and think differently about audiences and how you might tell the story differently according to what you're trying to do. But yeah, we try to be different. We try to be relevant, I guess, is the key. And agile is a much used word by businesses. You got to stay agile, particularly in the current climate, which seems to have gone on for years. It's been like this for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Even with notwithstanding COVID. And this year has been strange. It's been an election year, both here in the US, and you've had the war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis, Gaza,
Yep.
and now Lebanon. So all of these things have made it a very bumpy year commercially, and lots of waiting for things. I will just wait till the elections happened, and then we'll wait for the autumn budget, and then we'll wait for the US election. It's like, well, when are we actually going to get on with it? So that's been tricky, but you have to be nimble and agile, and not very easy as a business owner to get to what I'd call the sink cost fallacy, where you spent so much time trying to get a project away, whether that's a TV series or something in the corporate world. Whereas if you're honest with yourself, is this going to happen? Is it going to happen quickly? It might happen at some point, but should we focus our efforts somewhere else where there's a bit more low-hanging fruit, just to keep things ticking over?
Yeah.
It's very, very easy to get lured into a long-running conversation, which I guess is client management, but is there an invoice at the end of it? That's ultimately the key, isn't it? When can I invoice is the thing I ask myself all the time. When can we invoice for this? Because we need to keep the machine turning. And the Brits are very shy about money. We're very like, oh, should we invoice? I'm not sure if we should talk about money. It's the sort of the first thing we bring up, because it really helps iron out those conversations. It's a bit awkward, but equally, we always say here, if you're not pitching to a budget, you're not pitching at all, which is an old sort of agency saying. Someone like Ogilvy probably came up with that. But it's a really good one, because you can hear this great idea, and quite often our marketing contacts, our sort of client contacts, are very excited about a project, but the purse strings are being held by somebody else.
Yeah.
For no fault of their own. So it's a sort of shared struggle to get the money through. But that helps clarify a conversation. If they say, oh, do you know, I have no idea. I'm not sure there is a budget for this. We just thought it'd be interesting to find out how much it would cost. That's immediately gone from a 50% chance of conversion to like 5%.
At best, yeah.
Absolutely. At best, yeah. And it's like, is this actually happening? But then something else will come up 2 months later. And if you try and help, but notwithstanding the sort of the wasted time element is so dangerous to any small business, isn't it?
It is indeed. And I think, that's such a great insight into your world, Adam. Thank you so much for sharing that information, and one of the takeaways for me from that, just as a quick summary, is the way that you've sort of expressed and explained how your company and the people that work within your organization are looking to build those long-term relationships with your clients. And therefore you don't have a sales team, it's referral business that you're getting. And I think that's so key. And it's something that's so undervalued nowadays, where people think that they've just got to employ this strong-armed sales force to sort of like go out there and win the business. And the way that you've just so eloquently put it there, I think is a very valuable lesson. So thank you very much for that insight, Adam.
Pleasure. No, I think it's so much more effective to have the person who makes the thing, in our case, the filmmaker, talk about how great it could be. And oh, have you got something else coming up next month? Oh, got another conference. Well, if everyone's together, why don't we film that, but also do some other ancillary series around the values of your business, because everyone's going to be there. And they're there on the set. They're getting to know on the set, usually in someone's office or on location. It feels like a natural conversation rather than someone they maybe haven't met in person saying, hi, it's Beagle. Do you need any more videos? I never say that,
No.
I mean, and it'd be the same for any business, really. If you're an electrician, and you're there and you go, if I do a good job, could you just tell the neighbor? Because I've seen their wiring outside. It looks a bit dodgy, just could you give them my card? It's that sort of natural, I'm the guy who's going to do it sort of thing, rather than a salesperson. Because personally, if I receive a cold email from a sales and it says sales director or something on the email,
Yeah.
like it's just like immediately not
Yeah.
going to happen, you know.
No, exactly that. And I think that's the key thing. And you've just said it there. It's that wincing, that feeling that you get when something comes through and you know that that's going to be their sort of like whole demeanor of what they're looking to achieve in the conversation or the call or whatever that might be. So, yeah, no, it's well flagged up there, Adam. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I want to sort of dig a bit deeper, Adam, into, you mentioned the business was set up 2011, 2012. So a couple of things. One, what was the reasoning behind why you set the business up? And then two, give us a little bit of a, I don't know, like a whistle stop tour of what sort of milestones you've gone through over the last sort of 12 to 14 years in running the business.
Sure. Well, do you know what? I'd always wanted to have my own thing. Really from since I graduated, is that one day I'd like to start my own business. That's just something. I had a father who was very entrepreneurial, but he did put in his time working for other people. And then probably in his mid to late 30s, he decided to break out and start his own companies. And so I'd sort of probably been heavily influenced by my late father in that sense, but also by the instability of our sector. Media it's hugely exciting and engaging and creative, but it's less stable than other sectors. But that said, you know, there's no safety anymore in any sector. The days, as we all know, there's no such thing as a job for life anymore. We're all going to have probably 4 or 5 different careers almost, let alone different employers. So it was a strong desire in the sort of late noughties for me to sort of start something ideally with someone else, which is what I did. You know, as a guy I was friends with from my ITN days. So in my case, I needed someone else to bounce ideas off and to share the pressure, because it is quite high pressure. But equally, when you start something, it's out of a need to gain some control over your destiny. And I was made redundant by a couple of employers. And I thought it wasn't the end of the world. You were paid off and you could go get another job. And at that time, the job market was less stressed than it is now. So you just rolled with it, and it happened to everybody. And that was the way you went. But at the same time, I thought, do you know what? I don't want to have to go through that if I'm going to have a family, and I want more stability and some control over my destiny. So there's a strong drive to start your own business. That I would say is a huge part of it. If anyone's out there thinking of starting a business, that's a massively appealing side to it, because you're in control. It is scary, but you're in control. You know, that's the difference. You can be doing brilliantly in a job and you'll still get made redundant because someone in the States decides to turn off the tap, you know, or move the factory or whatever it might be. And the other thing I'd say is when you start out, it's really exciting because success is so small, as our chairman says, Charles Wace, who is my partner and chairman. Success is so small in a small business. If you can convert just a couple of clients, it's transformative potentially. Similarly, the great thing about TV is things can turn around very quickly. You know, you suddenly get a commission and then another one off the back of that. It's transformative in the numbers. So even if things are a bit tough, it's like, oh, next week something could happen. And so that makes it really fun. But you know, and you've got to enjoy the pressure in a way. So yeah, I should mention. So I've mentioned Charles. He started 2-4 in the 90s in Plymouth and London, a very successful independent production company, and is now our chairman and partner. And Kath Higgs, who runs the Cornwall office, my COO, is my other partner. So there's the 3 of us running it, sharing the pressure, with great sort of strategic insight from Charles, who's been there and done that. And part of the vision for Beagle is to be a Southwest oriented business down in Cornwall, obviously with this serious London office, but is to try and create a bit of a legacy, but also a bit more of a ecosystem in the Southwest for creative businesses, so that young people graduating in the Southwest or based in the Southwest, they can graduate from anywhere, but if they want to settle or remain or move to the Southwest, there is some options there. 2-4 was a great provider of that down in Plymouth, and we're in Newquay, sort of North Cornwall coast. We have operations in Bristol. The idea is that young people don't have to move to London to work in television or work in content creation or agency land. I put all of those in the same pot. If you want to work in advertising, most people go, oh, I'll go to London, but you shouldn't have to do that. And it's this push to the regions that we're all trying to do, and from government level down, try to create a bit more opportunity across the country, because there's so much good talent. Speaking selfishly from our point of view, we have a really good relationship with Falmouth College, who have a really good film course, lots of good creative courses. But we get great talent from Falmouth, and in London we recruit from the Met Film School in Ealing, who turn out very, very accomplished graduates, and also UCL East in Stratford. It is also we've built a partnership with them over the years as well. So that's the thinking, and as a TV company, we're a regional indie, which is supposed to represent the nations and regions, and therefore broadcasters find that very appealing. That if we're going to do a series about the Cornish coast or the food scene in the southwest or whatever it might be, it's being told by people who are actually from that community, who understand it, and it's more authentic, it's more sustainable in terms of crews traveling all over the country, all over the world. Sustainability is something we make a lot of content about for big multinationals, through to the Prince's Trust, the King's Trust. We don't like to fly film crews all over the world to film things, hence we've got our network of local crews, to reduce those flights and travel expenses and the cost of making something, but also the cost of the planet. And that runs through to TV as well. So you see at the end of TV shows, this is an Albert sustainable production. We apply those same standards to all of our production work. Can we take the train? Do we have to drive? And is it an electric car? So on. So if we're making a TV series, all the crew drive in electric cars. Simon Reeve only ever uses an electric car on his shows. So that's the sort of vision for Beagle, is a creative part of the creative ecosystem in the Southwest. Because for too long, all independent production was coming out of London. And when I started, it was in Soho. Then Soho got too expensive, and the hedge funds moved into Soho and Mayfair and pushed us out to Camden, Kentish Town. But it was still very London-based, North London, maybe to West London here, to Shepherd's Bush kind of area, Acton. But it was quite rare to be genuinely based in Leeds or Manchester or Edinburgh or Glasgow or down in the southwest. But that's changed now. I think it's there used to be a thing where everyone had a post office box in a regional location, not an office. I don't think you can get away with that anymore. But you do sometimes see a show that has clearly been made by a company not based in that area, and it's kind of quite irritating in terms of where we're all trying to go. But the milestones, I guess, were Charles Wace arriving probably 6 or 7 years ago, as he was exiting 2-4. He is sort of strategic advisor and now a partner in the business. And then Kath coming on board a few years ago as well, from a completely different background, which is she was importing strawberries and raspberries and fruit from the peninsula, from Spain and Portugal, into British supermarkets. So very commercial in that sense, very sharp when it comes to the numbers. So it's a kind of an interesting mix, which I think is healthy for any business, that if we're all from slightly different backgrounds, both creatively and in terms of business efficiencies and knowledge. The funny thing about our world is it is reasonably complicated, but equally probably takes about a year to really learn the basics of what you're trying to do in terms of how it works, how production works, whether it's for for a conference or for BBC One at 9 o'clock. You know, it's not rocket science. Like the technical side of filmmaking and cameras, that's a whole nother area of expertise. But to run the actual business of media, I personally think doesn't take long to pick up. Just
Yeah.
as like I used to think when I was a young lad, you know, you have the CEO of a company would move to a different job, and it used to be that guy Adam Crozier. Do you remember him? He used to run the post office,
Yep.
and then didn't he run the FA or something? Like he moved from very different organizations at C-suite level, and it used to confuse me. Like, how can he possibly run the post office and then I don't know work for a car company or something? How it's completely different, and they take probably 6 months to get onboarded, and then they pick it up, you know, because business is business.
Yeah, it is.
But at the same time, you need a great reputation as a filmmaker or what we call a showrunner these days, which is kind of American term for sort of series producer, someone who's the exec responsible for delivering a series. That is important, that they've got really good track. So there's a bit of trust with the broadcaster, or these days with the streamer, or even a brand who's looking to fund a program. You know, who's making it? You know, it's kind of an important question. But the running of the business that's making it, you know, that's less relevant. Like, doesn't matter if haven't made 42 TV shows before. You know, they've run successful businesses.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
That's been really good, and a great insight into the business and the sort of history of the business. So thank you again for that, Adam. That's been really useful, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers that's going to resonate with them, and they're going to get great insight from that. And on the note of running the business, I mean, it sounds like you've got a great team there running the business. What plans have you guys got for the next, say, 12 months, and what do you think will be some of your main challenges going forward?
Well, as anyone who knows TV in this country knows, it's been a tough year and a half, I'd say 18 months of very thin on the ground commissioning. So there was a downturn in the value of advertising. Coming out of COVID, too much content was commissioned by broadcasters because there was a dearth of content during COVID. So there was a glut of great business for everybody, and we got involved on that. But it has slowed down this year, partly because of the economic situation. You could include, you know, the war in Ukraine and the changing perceptions of what would be acceptable on TV. Like, oh, we can't have a show like that when this is going on in Central Europe. So that's definitely had an impact. But we want to stick around, and things will get better. So right now we're sort of fighting to develop our business communications business alongside TV. You know, our profits go into the development of TV ideas, but also we're aware of the digital world. I mean, a lot of our people have made digital content. I worked on a thing called the Network of the World, which was the first online TV channel that could merge the internet and satellite television. And that was back in 2003. So we're aware of different platforms and different kind of audiences. Young people don't watch TV really. They're watching YouTube, maybe watching the streamers, but they're absorbing TikTok and all sorts of other things. And that knowledge is permeating into our business comms output. We're very good at that. And so the next exciting stage, I think, would be what is Beagle Digital? You know, and many of my contemporary or competitors have tried to do stuff as a sweet sort of independent production company trying to make stuff for YouTube. It doesn't always work, right? So
Yeah.
highly produced television doesn't play out to a YouTube audience. You know, if anything, it's a turn off.
Yeah.
Those audiences, like this is clearly being made by a company. Well, I'm not interested. Whereas the authentic storytelling of a YouTube star, you know, just doing stuff in their bedroom or whatever, is at least from the heart, and it's real. Or certainly appears to be real to those audiences. So rather than do something ham-fisted, we haven't. We're sort of observing and sort of waiting for the opportunity to develop something that's a natural extension of what we do, which is emotional, powerful storytelling. And that could be an ancillary series around a show that we make
Yeah.
for TV that isn't the TV show, cut down in a lazy way, but it's something that can live, that's sustainable and live separately to the main asset, the main property. So we've got aspirations to do something interesting in the digital arena. So that would be the exciting, fresh kind of way forward. So we'd have three sort of areas: the business comms, the TV, and the sort of digital content sort of revenue stream, if you like. And yeah, we're looking to push on and grow exponentially, hopefully. I mean, that's what all any business owner wants, is growth.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I just wish we just have a bit of a runway. Can we just have 4 or 5 years of, we've got no elections now for 4 or 5 years in both the US and here, but a little bit of stability and a bit of calm politically across the world, like, would be nice, wouldn't it? So there's
Yeah.
some sort of visibility and breathing space. That's the challenge, isn't it? To sort of keep calm and have a long term, at least a 5 year plan, if not a 10 year plan for the future. But it's exciting because one of the best things about what I do is it's quite a young person's game. So we have young people coming through the business all the time with amazing ideas, with sort of so much more maturity than I remember having in the sort of late 90s. They're much, I would say, much more diligent generation, and they get a lot of, bad press, frankly. Gen Z or Gen A, whatever you want to call young people now, I think they're way more focused and driven and mature than I certainly was at 20, 21.
Yeah.
So that impresses me, and how digitally literate they are. Everyone can edit really proficiently.
Yeah.
Just because they've learned to do it separate to what they read at university. They could have read English, but they can edit and shoot, and they've just done it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is way more accessible than it was for us, but in terms of the kit, is affordable, and it's brilliantly taught online and so on. So that is interesting, that I can put a very young and experienced team of people in front of a client, and they love it. They find that really, rightly so. But also you have to balance that with experience. So there's also some very good seasoned producers who are there to kind of steer the ship.
Yeah.
That has been missing since COVID from a lot of businesses, is this middle management, someone who's got 10 to 15 to 20 years experience, helping young people develop in their careers.
Yeah.
And we see that with our clients. So ringing, they're pulling their hair out, going, "There's no middle management in my organization. They're all coming in 2 days a week now." And the culture isn't there anymore of sort of learning, right? Helping these young people develop, because they want to come in. They want to come in and meet. We talked about this earlier, didn't we? But they want to develop social skills that they probably have from school and college, but you still need to develop another layer of that for business, because you can be very sociable down the pub or, with your mates, but it's a different atmosphere in a meeting room with people you've never met, who might come from different culture, a different country, different languages, that you just need to know how to behave in a meeting or someone else's office.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed how that's the first thing I look for when I interview someone. Like, will they be okay in a room with clients, and like, do they have a natural kind of rapport on a human level?
Yeah.
Communication is absolutely key to life, not just to sort of making TV shows and content. So that's the best thing about Beagle, is the people you meet, and it's always different, every
Yeah.
day.
No,
Which is no, but
that's been really useful, and again, some really key elements within there, especially talking about with having a younger team on board for certain areas within the business, and everything that you've said there, I'm 100% in agreement with. One of the key things that you mentioned, and I thought it was really key, was keep calm and have a 5 year plan. I'm gonna get that one printed up on a poster.
it's so easy to get a rabbit in the headlights of the immediacy of the coalface of what you're doing. You know, and our chairman is always encouraging us to take a step back occasionally, not all the time, but
Yeah.
you know, often, just to check, are we spending our resources, our time predominantly in the right areas? And trust your young people to win business for you. You've got to sort of empower them to do that, because there comes a day where, you know, it's not so much that you're too old, but that they've seen you too much, right? And you know, they want to see progression in their supplier. In the case of a partnership or a supplier relationship, it's like, oh, there's a whole fresh, young, exciting group of people that are going to come in and make this film with us, and they get on really well with the marketing team, who are also quite new. And it's just it's very gratifying, I think, if you work in a business, particularly if you work in one for a long time, is to see the development of your young people. And so if our clients see, oh, Beagle is sort of helping our marketing team with this project, and kind of they're learning from the process and enjoying it predominantly, then that's really rewarding. A bit like having a family and seeing, oh, you've made a new friend and you've taught me how to hit a tennis racket, you know, hit a tennis ball or something.
Yeah.
That's gratifying. Like, oh, that's a great relationship. Um, so you know, in that sense, that you never get bored of what you're doing, because there's always this fresh ideas and perspectives and a different way of looking at the world. So you
Yeah.
don't get cynical and sort of world weary.
Exactly that. And it's always good to get a fresh perspective on things with a younger set of eyes as well. I think that's another
Totally. And a knowledge of, like, actually this is what people want, and this is where audiences are now, and this is the style of content that resonates. And businesses really understand that now in a way that maybe 15 years ago, even, you know, corporate communication content was sort of very limited and boxed in to what's appropriate for a business to do. Now all bets are off, because businesses and brands have realized actually we can be broadcasters,
Yeah.
both internally and you know, literally making TV shows. So it's definitely evolved, and quite quickly.
Yeah, it certainly has. Well, thanks again, Adam. Some great insights there. So really, really useful. And again, the listeners and viewers are going to really get some value from that. And on that note, I mean, moving on to yourself more as the business owner and a business owner for many years, you've mentioned. But in running the business for the last sort of 12, 14 years, what would you say, and it's probably going to be difficult to sort of narrow it down, but what would you say has been one of the biggest lessons that really stands out for you, Adam?
There's two things that, and my team, my partners have pointed this out, is when things are going really well, you know, and you're super busy, you're very busy in the moment, but are you busy 2 months from now? You know, and that you just get, again, just the coal face thing. Like, well, we're set. You know, like everyone's flat out making stuff on both sides of the business. But then you have to look at the pipeline and go, okay, well, actually, in 3 months there's the cliff edge. You know, there's not enough. There's projections and there's the likelihood of things, but it's not real.
Yeah.
So I now sort of have an alarm bell in my head that says, you know, go out and look for new business now, harder than ever, while you're busy, and don't get too sucked into the production that's going on in the moment.
Yeah.
That's a key learning. That would be the same for any business. So, you know, if you're flat out building fences around people's gardens, but have you got any orders in 3 months later?
Yeah.
And you're not going out to look for those leads to get that business. So, and if you're a small company, that's super hard, because, you know, you don't have the freedom to sort of necessarily do that, but you have to kind of allot half of the day every day to sort of searching for new opportunities.
Yeah.
And the second thing is I mentioned it earlier, is wasted time. And if you can spot, not that they're tire kickers, but they're just dreamers, which is a lovely thing in our world. Like, somebody who desperately wants to do something, but is it going to be possible? For various reasons, is it real? You know, avoiding wasted time is the key for any small business because it's so costly. It doesn't feel like money going out, but it's time flying out the door with no return.
Yeah.
Uh, so so wasted time is the enemy of any business. Could be a multinational, could be a tiny sort of coffee shop. Like if you're wasting time with a customer who's not going to buy the coffee, then the guys who've come in and walked out because there's a queue. You just got to keep your eye on the money. It's that simple. And avoid time wastage.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Adam, and another great share. So, Adam, I want you to humour me, if you will. Now, I was born in the 70s, raised in the 80s kind of kid. So whenever I sort of raise the question about time travel, all that springs to mind is a DeLorean that goes 88 miles an hour, and then we go back to wherever we choose to. So we're going to go back, you and I, to visit an 18-year-old Adam. And we're in the DeLorean. We've hit 88 miles an hour, and we've just appeared. And there you are, 18 years old. Now you get to give yourself one piece of advice, one golden nugget. What would it be?
I think it would be to do as much work experience as possible, which is it's a well-established sort of adage, isn't it? But work experience, work experience, work experience, because school is such a different environment to the real world, and you don't really. I mean, career services in schools and universities are way better than they were when we were 18. I remember the careers library at Edinburgh University was just like this deserted series of rooms with old magazines, with careers magazines in it, and it's where people used to go to make out. It wasn't it wasn't used. It genuinely wasn't used. It had like cobwebs and stuff. So so but the young people now that we were talking about earlier, they're so much more rounded and kind of world aware that compared to maybe it was just me, but I definitely wasn't kind of aware of how the world worked. So getting out every summer to do, and even any kind of university break or school holidays, even from 16, not waiting until you've graduated to do work experience. So a lot of the people we hire have come from doing internships when they were teenagers.
Yeah.
As soon as they've graduated, they're in, not every case, but there's been several who've done that and secured a job knowing, so they go into their finals knowing I'm going to have a job at the come the summer. And it also just like finding out what really interests you, because you at 18 you might think, yeah, I'm good with numbers, I'm going to go down the finance accountancy route, and then you go and do some work experience and go, actually I'm not the right fit for this culturally. I'm a bit more creative than I realized. I'd rather do photography or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You cannot know until you've tried those areas. And the people who say, I always knew I wanted to be there, it's quite rare to know what you really know with sort of empirical knowledge of what a life is going to be in a chosen career. And as I said earlier, it's so much easier. It's not unusual to change your career now, whereas I think 20, 30 years ago, it was kind of almost frowned upon. Like, hold on, you're an accountant, you can't now become a playwright. But these days, stand-up comedians who are doctors and all of this kind of stuff
Yeah.
is totally acceptable and almost to be expected. So yeah, that's what I would tell my 18-year-old self, but also to travel, and to get out there and see the world a bit, because you pick up so much knowledge around, like I was saying earlier, like how to behave in a room where you don't know anybody. Well,
Yeah.
if you're traveling and you kind of go somewhere and you don't know anyone, then you sort of get used to feeling confident in yourself when talking to strangers and things like that. So just traveling kind of can develop your networking skills and also knowledge of things outside of your little bubble that you've had from childhood through to leaving school. So those two areas, I think, would and it is quite difficult to get work experience sort of booked in. But if you approach a company, even if you don't know anyone there,
Yeah.
if it's a good company, they should respond. So we make a point of replying to everybody who sends us an email around that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're not trying to sell me sort of office supplies. They might get deleted, but if a young person's writing from their school or from the university in a sort of endearing way, then we'll definitely respond. particularly if they're from the Southwest and Cornwall and they live locally, then we'll look to give them a week or two of work experience.
Yeah.
Because in some ways that can be the best way to recruit people, apart from anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say to myself is like, stop kind of living in this little world that you think when you're 18, you think you know everything. And then in the years between 18 and 25, you realize you know nothing, and it's kind of terrifying in your early 20s.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's some really sound advice. And unfortunately, I don't have a time machine, but there's certainly going to be some people around that sort of age that have been listening. And you never know, Adam, you might even get an influx of people sending you those emails.
Yeah.
So watch out for that.
Yeah, no, so don't hold me to it, but I'll try and get back to you.
Brilliant. So, Adam, I mean, you're clearly very passionate about what you do, but one of the things I really want to know is what is it that puts that fire in your belly that creates or gives you that sort of inspiration to do what you do day in, day out?
I think it's fundamentally, a desire to grow something. It's like your baby, and you don't want it to end, really. It's like being on a great run, putting on a play that's having a great success. You don't want it to end. But also, having family behind you supporting you, there's a sort of obligation. But I don't feel that sort of pressure, though, if I'm honest. I feel a sort of innate confidence in the team, and and great business partners who share the same key objectives and values. And it's so gratifying to have clients who sort of not only thank you when you delivered something, but then say, we want to work with you again. It's very addictive. It's a sort of highly addictive side to what we do. Is that it's actually useful what we do, and it's actually wanted. So knowing that there's a demand for what we do makes you think, well, there's no reason why we can't continue and succeed. When you're trying to sell something that people don't want, that is depressing. And in a previous life, I've been there where there's like, if it's too expensive or it's just not valued, the thing that you're offering or understood, then that can be debilitating. And in our case, what we offer is relatively simple, like the concept. And the power of video is clear for all to see, and everybody in marketing, particularly in communications, get that it. But also most people in the street, we've become so encultured with content, particularly in the UK, because we're very good at it. It's one of the things we do really well in this country, and it's held up by government. Creative industries are sort of highly regarded in terms of UK PLC. We're not in this sort of weird breaking new ground, sort of trying to create the market for ourselves in a sort of tech world way. It's already there, and it's always been there. And we have such a good heritage in this country for creativity that it's fun to be part of that world, which is still quite a small world where lots of people know each other. And in that sense, it's kind of, it feels great, because it's a familiar sort of bubble that we're in the UK. But equally, there are some great people outside of the UK working with us with fresh ideas. So yeah, as I said, it's an ever-changing landscape that it's hard to get bored with it,
Yeah.
And it keeps you getting up in the morning. And like any job, you do have those mornings where you're like, oh, it's a Monday. But then, I always find by the time I've had a shower, like my mindset's completely different.
Yeah.
And you remember what's happening that day. Oh, why was I? And I think that's quite normal to wake up with mildly negative thoughts, partly because you haven't enough sleep or it's dark outside or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're sort of very lucky and privileged to be sort of able to do what we do. And I think most of the young people who work for us realize that they're doing quite an interesting job.
Yeah.
Where they're sort of learning something pretty much on the hour, every hour of the day, not just one thing a day, but multiple things.
Yeah.
And training and development is a big part of the sell of Beagle, I suppose, because we're not the biggest company in the industry, but we're not the smallest, and you learn a lot working for us, where you're not put into a little pigeonhole, right? Go and do that for 2 years and not allowed to do anything else.
Yeah.
That can happen at the bigger employers in our world. So that's the big appeal for our young people. But yeah, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. You know what I mean? You've got to, which is again back to my earlier point about work experience. If you try something out, and I always say to myself, if you can do the granular stuff in a job, the stuff that's really kind of what used to be logging, which is now done by AI, which is fantastic, but you still have to check those scripts that have been transcribed from an interview properly. That used to be the sort of nuts and bolts of what you do in production as a producer, or it'd be sorting out the budget if you're a production manager and logistics. So if you can do the granular work, I guess if you're a lawyer, if you can check a contract forensically and you find that satisfying in some way, then you're probably in the right job, because all the fun stuff is obviously fun. I mean, everyone enjoys flying to Brazil to go and film something. You know, that's obvious. But if you can do the humdrum minutiae of a job, which isn't all the time, but if that you find that in some way sort of gives you headspace and is sort of almost relaxing in a way, then it's probably the right career for you.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think that, again, the advice that you've sort of mentioned there, and just, I think that summary of find something that you love doing and that you've got that variety and you've got that sense of purpose, but something that you're good at and people want. And I think that's a very good mix to have, to then find what it is that's going to sort of set you up. And I think you're right. The advice you gave earlier about doing the work experience and trying different things, because, you know, we can all set our sort of selves up for something that we think we're going to want to do or we're going to love doing. But sometimes we do find out that it's not all it's cracked up to be. So, yeah, so that's a great insight there. Thanks again for that, Adam. So we're going to sort of wrap things up now, Adam. And people are definitely going to want to find out more. Some of those people are going to be emailing you to find out about this 2-week work experience as well. But on a serious note, some people that want to sort of find out about the business, find out a bit more about you. So what's going to be the best way for them to do that, Adam?
Well, if they go to our website, that's probably, you know, or Instagram, it's at Beagle Media is our handle on Insta. And we are beaglemedia.co.uk. And it's Beagle as in the dog, but we're named after Darwin's boat, Voyage of the Beagle. So it's BEAGLE media, one word, .co.uk.
Fantastic. Well, Adam, it's been absolutely great having you on today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Mark.
And for those of you watching or listening today, that is a wrap for the Business Spotlight. We'll see you all again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.